Welcome back to the deep dive. We're really glad to have you with us today. We're looking at a stack of research and articles that challenge pretty much the first instinct every single one of us has when we look for a place to hunt.
Oh, yeah, it really does.
It's a topic that feels simple on the surface, but when you peel it back, it completely changes how you spend your money.
Because it's the one variable that dominates the conversation. I mean, it is the headline of every single listing you see.
It really is. Picture this for a second. You get a notification on your phone. Maybe it's an email alert, or a buddy calls you up and says, "Hey, I think I found a spot for next season."
Right.
What is the absolute first question that comes out of your mouth before you ask about the price, before you ask about the cabin? What do you ask?
How many acres is it?
Every single time.
How many acres?
It's the filter we set on the search bar, and honestly, it feels like the most logical shortcut to determining value.
Because we have this default setting in our brains.
Exactly. The setting that says the math is simple. More dirt equals more deer. More acres equals more distance from the neighbors. Bigger is automatically better.
That is the assumption. But we have a fascinating breakdown today from the American Hunting Lease Association. Specifically, an analysis by Laura Herboldheimer that basically says, stop.
Just stop.
Yeah, that assumption is flawed, and it's probably costing you a lot of money and a lot of wasted weekends.
I think flawed is putting it politely, based on what I read in the source material. It suggests that prioritizing acreage above everything else is actually a trap.
It is a trap. And the central thesis we're exploring today isn't that size is entirely irrelevant. I mean, obviously you can't hunt safely on a postage stamp in the suburbs.
All right, you need some space.
But the argument is that acreage sets a ceiling for potential. It guarantees absolutely nothing about results.
So you're saying a massive property can be a biological desert, and a tiny parcel can be a trophy factory.
Precisely. And if you are paying for the massive property thinking you bought an entire ecosystem, you might just be renting an extremely expensive hiking trail.
Man, that is a scary thought for anyone writing a lease check right now.
It should be.
So our mission today is to move beyond the raw number. We're going to break down the reasons why acreage isn't the kingmaker we think it is, and answer the question that actually matters, which is, how does the land hunt?
Which is a much harder question to answer, but it's the right one.
Let's start with the psychology, though. Why are we so obsessed with that high acreage number? Is it just ego? Like, do we just want to say we lease 1,000 acres to our buddies?
A little bit of ego, sure. But mostly it's the psychology of control. When you see a high acreage number, say 500 or 1,000 acres, it validates the price tag in your mind.
It makes you feel like you're getting your money's worth.
Exactly. It makes you feel like you have elbow room. It creates this illusion that because you lease the space, the animals will naturally be there because there is so much of it. It just feels safer to buy big.
But the source material points out a major flaw in that logic regarding the animals themselves. They don't exactly respect our contracts.
No, they don't. Here is the reality check. Whitetails, turkeys, waterfowl, they do not look at plat maps. They do not know where the property line is.
They can't read the posted signs.
Exactly. They don't care that you leased 500 acres if those 500 acres are a biological dead zone. They hunt terrain, they hunt habitat, and they follow movement patterns.
So a deer doesn't care if I have the deed to the forest if the forest is empty.
Exactly. And this leads to one of the most counterintuitive points in the deep dive today. The small property advantage.
I usually think of small properties as a massive disadvantage. You feel like you're too close to the road, too close to the neighbors. How can having less land be an advantage?
It comes down to the difference between holding game and intercepting game.
Okay, holding versus intercepting.
Right. There is a misconception that you need hundreds of acres to hold a mature buck, meaning he lives his entire life, beds, feeds, and breeds solely on your land.
Which, unless you own a high-fence ranch in Texas, is almost impossible. A buck's home range is huge.
Correct. So if you can't hold him, you have to intercept him. Think about a property that is under 100 acres. In the bigger is better mindset, many hunters scroll right past that listing.
They don't even look at it.
But what if that 100 acres sits directly between a major bedding area, maybe a thick swamp, and a primary food source, like a soybean field?
Oh, I see. It's a hallway.
It's a pinch point. It is the commute. If the animals have to cross it daily to survive, that small property can offer higher consistency and success rates than a 1,000-acre property that sits in a dead zone where animals rarely travel.
So you don't need to own the bedroom or the kitchen. You just need to own the hallway connecting them.
That is the interception strategy, perfectly summarized. It changes how you look at a map. You stop looking for vastness and start looking for choke points. You're looking for flow, not just area.
Okay, I like that. I really like that. But let's flip the script. Let's talk about the big but bad scenario. The source mentions that large properties can actually trap hunters into failure. How does a 1,000-acre lease turn out to be a bust? That seems really hard to mess up.
It happens way more often than you'd think. And usually it's what the AHLA calls a funnel problem.
Explain that. Is that a terrain funnel, like a valley or a ridge?
No, a human funnel.
Yeah.
This is all about logistics. Imagine a 1,000-acre lease. Sounds like an absolute dream. But because of the way the county roads are cut or the way the land is fenced off, it only has one access gate.
Ah, I see exactly where this is going.
Every single time anyone hunts, they have to go through that one gate. All the human scent, all the vehicle noise, the slamming truck doors, the ATVs firing up in the dark, it is all funneled through a single entry point.
You're basically announcing your arrival to every animal within a mile.
And animals are incredibly smart when it comes to pattern recognition. We consistently underestimate them. If a large property creates predictable human pressure because of an inefficient layout, the animals will simply avoid the areas where the humans go.
Right, they just adapt.
So you might be paying for 1,000 acres, but you've effectively pressured the herd right off your land and into the neighbor's swamp.
So having 1,000 acres doesn't matter one bit if you can't access it without burning it out.
Exactly. You've effectively shrunk your own lease by having poor access.
That connects to something else the source highlighted, which is the geometry of the land, the actual shape on the map. I never really thought about the shape of a lease being a deal breaker. Dirt is dirt, right? But the analysis suggests the shape is huge.
It's the difference between usable space and paper space.
Mm.
Think about a long, narrow tract of land. Maybe it follows a winding creek or a utility easement.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
It might have a lot of acres on paper, but because it's so narrow, you have a tremendous amount of edge.
And in this context, edge isn't the good kind of habitat edge. It means boundaries.
Right. It means neighbors. If you were sitting in the middle of a narrow strip, you might only be 200 yards from a neighbor on either side. If they're hunting hard or making a ton of noise or just have bad wind, your land is completely compromised.
You have no buffer.
None. You are susceptible to everything happening around you.
So what is the ideal geometry? If we are looking at a map, what shape do we actually want?
You want a core, a square or a circle. A compact, contiguous tract allows you to have a sanctuary in the middle, a place where you can truly get away from the boundary lines.
Somewhere the neighbors can't touch.
Exactly. A compact 300 acres often hunts way bigger than a fragmented or narrow 600 acres because you have that insulated interior where animals feel safe.
That is a crucial distinction. It's about insulation. You want to be insulated from the outside world.
Exactly. You want a sanctuary where the neighbor's mistakes don't ruin your hunt.
Now, I want to challenge you on something. The biggest argument for big leases, and the reason my buddies always push for them, is usually headcount. If I have 4 buddies, we need a big lease so we don't shoot each other or step on each other's toes. Does the small property argument fall apart when you add more people?
Not necessarily, but the math changes. This is what we call hunter density math.
Walk us through that. How does that work?
Well, the lazy math is just acres divided by hunters. You say, hey, we have 600 acres and 6 guys. That's 100 acres per guy. We're good to go.
That's how everyone does it.
But the real math is independent spots divided by hunters.
Independent spot.
Can I hunt here without ruining your hunt over there? Let's go back to that compact 300-acre property we just mentioned. Imagine it has really diverse habitat. Steep hills, deep thickets, maybe a ridge running right through the middle.
Lots of structure.
Right. Because of those terrain features blocking sight and sound, you might be able to put 4 hunters on that property and never even know the others are there.
You feel totally isolated? The terrain just eats up the noise and the sight lines?
Yes. Now take a 600-acre property that is flat, open pasture, or a young clear cut. You can see for a mile. You might seriously struggle to put 2 hunters on that without them interfering with each other's setups or cutting off each other's deer movement.
So a smaller property with complex terrain can actually support more hunters than a large, flat property.
100%. It's about the quality of the experience. If you are constantly worrying about where your buddy is sitting, or if the wind is blowing your scent right into his lap, the extra acreage doesn't matter. You are crowded, even on a giant map.
This brings us to the actual dirt itself, the habitat. The source uses this term monoculture. We see this a lot in timber country, right?
Oh, yeah. The endless pine rows, just miles of it.
How does habitat diversity literally multiply the value of the land?
Think of habitat like a buffet. If you go to a buffet and they only serve mashed potatoes,
I mean, I love mashed potatoes, but I get your point.
You aren't going to stay there for 4 hours. You eat, you get bored, and you leave to find a steak or a salad. A monoculture property, one that is just endless rows of the same timber age class or just wide open cattle pasture, is that potato buffet. Animals move through it, but they do not stay.
They're just passing through to get to the good stuff.
Right, but a property with diversity, mature timber for acorns, young thickets for bedding, open fields for grazing, water sources, that keeps animals interested. They can bed here, eat there, drink here, and travel along the edge where those zones meet.
And that creates time on, time off.
Exactly. If the animals are spending 80% of their day on your land because you have everything they need, your 100 acres is effectively much larger than the neighbor's 500 acres if he only has one piece of the puzzle. You are holding them for more hours of the day.
Does this depend on the species, though? I feel like a turkey needs way more room than a deer. A deer is a homebody, but turkeys seem to cover miles and miles.
It absolutely depends on the target species. The source breaks this down really well. Whitetails are homebodies. They can thrive on surprisingly small tracts if the cover is thick enough. You can have a world-class deer lease on 80 acres if it's the nastiest, thickest bedding cover in the county.
But turkeys?
Turkeys are wanderers. They need to roam. They might roost in one spot, fly down to a field to bug, and then travel 2 miles to loaf in the afternoon shade. So generally, yes, you want more acreage for turkeys.
That makes sense.
But even then, you don't need all the acres. You just need the acres with the roost trees and the strutting zones.
And what about waterfowl? Because that feels like a totally different ballgame entirely.
Waterfowl is the ultimate example of size doesn't matter. It is almost entirely about location and water. You could have 2,000 acres of dry field, and unless you're field hunting geese, it's often worthless for ducks compared to a 10-acre flooded timber hole right in the flyway.
That's a great point. You can't hunt ducks on dry land just because you have a lot of it. The acreage number is almost completely irrelevant compared to the water surface area.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Location trumps size every single time with birds.
I want to pivot to something that I think is often overlooked because we get so fiercely focused on our own map. We look at the lease, we look at the boundaries, and we just forget what is happening on the other side of the fence. The neighborhood effect.
This is massive.
Yeah.
In real estate, they say location, location, location. In hunting leases, it's neighbors, neighbors, neighbors. The value of your acreage is directly tied to who is next door.
Give us the best case scenario. If I'm scrolling listings right now, what neighbor am I hoping for?
The best case is the sanctuary bonus.
Uh-huh.
Let's say you find a small 80-acre lease. But when you look at the map, you see the neighbor is a state park where hunting isn't allowed. Or maybe it's a large private landowner who manages strictly for trophy quality and hardly ever shoots.
I've got a gold mine.
Absolute gold mine. That neighbor is essentially banking all the deer for you. They feel safe there, and they will naturally spill over onto your property to feed or breed. Your 80 acres is drafting off their 500 acres of safety. You are getting the benefit of their land management for totally free.
That sounds amazing. But what about the flip side? The pressure penalty.
The pressure penalty is very real, and it is a heartbreaker. You could have that 1,000-acre dream property we talked about earlier, but if it's bordered on 3 sides by highly pressured public land, or by a busy highway or a brand new subdivision,
The outside pressure pushes in.
it squeezes the life out of your property. If the perimeter is under siege, the center becomes less valuable, the deer become nocturnal, or they just leave entirely. It's incredibly hard to hold game when the neighborhood is chaotic.
It really highlights that you can't just lease in a vacuum. You have to zoom out on Google Earth and see what actually surrounds you. You need to see the context.
Context is everything. A 50-acre tract in the middle of Iowa corn country is worth infinitely more than 500 acres next to a drag strip.
So we've talked about the land, the animals, the neighbors. Now let's talk about the variable we actually control. Us, the humans. The source argues that we can actually stretch the acreage through management.
This is the empowering part of the whole deep dive. You aren't just stuck with what the land is. You can change how it hunts. The source calls this active management.
What are the big levers here? Obviously, food plots are the go-to.
Food plots are the obvious one. Adding a dining room to the house creates a reason for them to be there, but there's also timber stand improvement. Clearing out junk trees to let sunlight hit the forest floor so native browse grows.
Right.
That creates bedding cover, which keeps them on your property during daylight.
What about how we hunt it? Does our actual behavior change the effective size?
That is actually the biggest factor of all. The source heavily emphasizes stand rotation.
How does moving a tree stand make the land bigger?
It prevents burnout. Think about it. If you hunt the same stand in the same wind every single Saturday, the deer learn. They aren't stupid. They smell you, they hear you, they avoid that spot. That spot becomes dead space.
So by overhunting a spot, you are effectively deleting those acres from your lease map.
Precisely. You have shrunk your own lease. By having multiple stand locations and rotating them based on wind and pressure, you keep the deer guessing, you keep the entire property live, you are maximizing the usable space by not letting any one area go stale.
That leads right into the concept of lease structure. The source makes a really strong claim here that exclusivity is more valuable than acreage.
I agree with this wholeheartedly, especially for the listener who wants a high-quality experience. Think about the trade-off. Would you rather be one of 20 members on a 2,000-acre club?
Where you have to fight for spots every weekend.
Exactly. You deal with strangers, you have no control over the rules, and you don't even know who hunted your favorite stand yesterday. The pressure is random and totally uncontrollable. Or would you rather have 200 acres that you lease exclusively with just your brother or your best friend?
The 200 acres every single time.
Because you control the variables, you control the pressure, you set the rules on guest access, you decide when to shoot and when to pass. That level of control creates a quality of hunt that raw acreage in a shared club simply cannot match.
It's the difference between a public park and your own backyard. You can cultivate the backyard, the park is just there.
That's it. Control is almost always worth more than size.
Before we wrap up the human element, the source mentions one specific administrative thing. It's not the sexiest topic, but they say it applies regardless of size. Insurance.
Yeah, the AHLA emphasizes hunting lease insurance. It is a non-negotiable. Whether you have 50 acres or 5,000, liability is very real.
Is this just to protect the landowner?
It protects the landowner, which honestly is often the only reason they are willing to lease to you in the first place. They don't want to lose the family farm because someone fell out of a tree stand.
Yeah.
But it also protects you and your hunting partners.
Right, both sides.
It's about peace of mind.
Yeah.
You don't want a lawsuit to ruin a great hunting spot because someone tripped over a fence or an ATV rolled over.
Absolutely. It's the safety net that lets you actually focus on the hunt.
Okay, let's bring this all home. We started with the question, how many acres is it? And I think we've pretty effectively dismantled why that shouldn't be the only question you ask. It is a starting point, not the answer.
So recap this shift for us. If acreage is just the container, what actually fills it?
Acreage sets the ceiling. It determines the maximum potential. But whether you reach that ceiling depends on the 4 key variables we discussed: location, layout, diversity, and management.
Location, layout, diversity, management.
If you have those 4 things working for you, a small property can outhunt a giant one. If you ignore those 4 things, a giant property is just a really big bill.
So the listener needs to stop asking how big is it and start asking,
How does it hunt? Look at the topo map. Look at the aerial view. Where's the water? Where's the cover? Who are the neighbors? Where can I park my truck without spooking everything? Those are the details that actually put meat in the freezer.
It really changes the way you scroll through listings. You stop looking for the biggest number and start looking for the smartest map.
That's the goal. You want efficiency, not just volume.
Here's a final thought I want to leave everyone with. We talked a lot about dead space today. I want you, the listener, to think about your current hunting spot right now, or the one you are thinking about leasing for next season.
Here's the provocative question to take with you. What is the difference between your own space and your usable space?
Unpack that for them one last time.
You might be writing a check for 500 acres. But if 200 acres is a wide open pasture the deer never cross in daylight, and another 100 acres is a steep, rocky drop-off you literally can't access, and another 50 acres is right next to a neighbor's barking dog, are you actually leasing 500 acres? Or are you paying for 500 and only hunting 150?
That is a painful question for some people to answer. You're paying for ghost acres.
Don't pay for ghost acres. Identify that dead space. Either stop paying for it or use management to bring it back to life. But do not let the map fool you.
Don't pay for ghost acres. That is exactly where we're going to leave it for today. Thank you for diving deep with us. Hopefully next time you see a lease listing, you look a little closer at the map before you look at the price tag.
Happy hunting, everyone.
We'll see you on the next deep dive.